There's the bumper music right there that we play between, again, the connection, and essentially talking about the Chevy teams working together, and that's why they've got the 3 victories. Hey, Joey Logano, the spin, may have had the race out there before Bubba Wallace spun out, but what a story for brother to beat brother Kurt Busch over Kyle Busch in Kentucky and such. One thing I did want to ask, this is kind of out of the box, have you heard anything about Camaro becoming an electric car? I guess that's, what Scotty, the mechanic on YouTube, was talking a little bit about that. That was a rumor he had. Have you heard anything about that? You were up to date that Camaro was going to be in the Cup Series. Anything like that in your sources?
I have not heard that, but I will say this, though. I would not be surprised to see that happen, not so much initially from Chevy, but maybe from some, aftermarket, manufacturer that they want to try to see if Camaro would be compatible with the electric motor and that kind of thing. But I have not heard anything from Chevy officially. If they haven't, I haven't heard that though.
You'll see on my Facebook page, it's myself and my deceased grandfather, and he's posing with his '67 Camaro convertible, and he fell in love with Camaros, when they came out and all this. And one of the reasons why, and I thought of this when I heard Scotty talk about the Camaro as an electric car. Said, I wanted a smaller car to drive. At the time in 1967, the Camaro was the small Chevy. Sure, it was sporty. That was just a happy accident. You know that. I mean, if one can believe, subcompacts weren't really a thing in 1967 and 1968. But yeah, for that person that wanted a smaller car, there it was, the Camaro and the Mustang.
Well, the Camaro back then. I mean, you put a smile on my face with what you just said, Marky, because back then, it was the Camaro, and then of course the Chevelle, and as much as a Dodge guy that I am. Mm-hmm. My all-time dream car will be a 1969 or a 70 Chevy SS 396. That's always been, the Chevelle SS 396.
Oh yeah.
My favorite cars. So you brought a smile on my face when you said that.
Those go about for $50,000.
Yeah, just a wee bit.
I've got a '70 Impala that's sitting in my driveway that desperately needs restored. But anyhow, there you go. I still think that '70 was a very good year for Chevy. Okay, let's talk about what a good year for NASCAR 2019 is. I know we're going to talk a little bit about Daytona, but I want to get to what's coming up with Pocono. And this is going to be the last time where it's not, I guess, at least for the foreseeable future, a double-header race and all this. Of course, Pocono has always been very close together on the NASCAR series. Why is that, Jerry? Why has Pocono always been so close together, and now it'll be in the same weekend in the future?
Well, there's a tradition that goes back many, many years at Pocono, that they've always had the 2 races. That goes back to even I think back when Bill France Jr. was running NASCAR and what's their last name? Mazzoli's. The track owners. There's just a nature of tradition there to have those races, typically 6 or 8 weeks apart usually. But now this will be the last time we'll see that, because next year will be the doubleheader weekend where we're going to have 2 Cup races on the same weekend. That's the first time it's ever been held anywhere. And on one hand, I'm kind of sad to see the split, if you will, between the 6 or 8 weeks between the 2 races. But on the other hand, I'm also excited to see 2 back-to-back Cup races on the same weekend as well too. The biggest problem, though, and it's not a secret, Pocono always has weather issues in the summer, and I'm hoping that next year we don't see 2 races get essentially rained out and we get pushed back another day or 2 afterwards. But that being said, though, I think this is going to be a very exciting thing for the racetrack. I think it's exciting for the fans. I think it's going to be exciting for NASCAR as well too.
Hey, you were talking about the weather. You're always talking about the weather, and all this. I just hope that it still stays sunny out because I left the top down on my car. But anyhow, that really is a rich man's problem right there, to tell you the truth. Right? I just said Boca, but no, Daytona. and I know you weren't able to come on with us last week, but boy, that was a tough race to watch because first it was canceled, and then it was delayed, and then it was, oh, we're going to come back in 10 minutes. No, wait a minute, it'll be 2 more hours. By that time, I just gave up. And, so I understand what your thoughts are on the weather, but what were your thoughts on Daytona? A lot of people didn't like that an unknown won. I thought it was great. I thought that we've had too much of 2 teams winning in NASCAR and maybe pushing out the little guys. And why do we have a 40-car field if the back end isn't competitive? What were your thoughts on the Daytona race?
Well, NASCAR did what it could. You can't beat Mother Nature, and NASCAR tried to drive the track. They had promised the drivers that they would be going back racing in about 10 minutes, and unfortunately the weather did not cooperate, and NASCAR had to, essentially wait it out for another couple hours, and they wound up pulling the plug because they could see that even with lights, they may not get going until 11, 12, maybe even 1 o'clock in the morning. You can't run racing that late, especially with the folks that live in and around the racetrack as well too. So you look at that situation. It was great to see Justin Haley win. The small team, Spire Motorsports, earn its first win. But it's not that uncommon. Eric Almirola won his first Cup race at Daytona. What was it, back in 2011, I want to say it was. Maybe it might be off on the year, but a rain-short situation. He wound up winning that race. Chris Buescher won his first Cup race at Pocono a few years back. Same situation, rain shortened rather. And so, it's what these teams know is a possibility, especially if there's weather in the area. And, in midsummer in Central Florida, weather typically is an issue. So, they try to get the race in. They couldn't. And, Justin Haley and Peter Suspenzo, his crew chief, they did a great job of, being prepared for all possibilities. And it was great to see a little team, a little guy, beat the big guys. They out-strategized the big guys. I thought it was a great finish. Yeah,
it was for the underdogs, and we talk a little bit about, why is NASCAR struggling right now. And, I did think that maybe, I know the people that say dynasties are good for sports, but I'll tell you this. Again, here's the Marky Billson combines baseball with NASCAR again reference. But back in the 50s when the Yankees won a World Series every year, 6 other teams had to move. It just wasn't competitive and all this. They weren't keeping up. And that couldn't have been good for those towns that lost. It couldn't have been good for Brooklyn to lose their baseball team. Come on, think about that. So, is it so good? Now we're seeing fewer cars in the field, and really a lot of times, what is that slope? Why is Bubba Wallace spinning out? What's he doing? You've got that. And I've always been one, look, if we're going to have that many people in a race, we're going to have that many cars. As many cars as possible should be competitive, and I'm not sure the entire field, in fact, I don't think the entire field is competitive under modern NASCAR racing. My opinion. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, you can't blame Bubba for spinning.
No, I'm not saying that.
Right, no, but what I'm getting at, though, is that, he was trying to improve his position, his final position in the race, and as a result, he either he pushed the car too much to its limits, or something broke, or something like that, which caused the spin. It's just unfortunate the timing was, when it happened, because, especially for a guy like Joey Logano, because he thought, he probably had that race won, and then, on the restart, everything kind of just went totally different as it turned out. So, I know what you're saying about the smaller fields and the fewer cars, but unfortunately, with our economy having been what it's been the last 10 years, we've lost probably a good 6 to 10 teams over the years, if not more. And we have to go with what we have. And some cars are not necessarily as competitive as the big guys. But on the flip side, in talking about this, I go right back to what I said a moment ago about Spire Motorsports and Justin Haley winning. The little guys outbeat the big guys. And the circumstances were a little bit different because it was rain delayed, rain shortened rather. But the logic in NASCAR is that it invariably, not every race, but in some races, the little guys do have a chance of winning. So we talk about Bubba Wallace spinning at Kentucky Saturday. Who's to say that Bubba may not wind up winning at New Hampshire this coming Sunday? There's a lot of different things that can happen. So
I can't believe it. I thought of this, didn't think of this earlier, but the demise of Morgan McClure. Now, Martin McClure up in Abingdon, once a very competitive race team. And I mean, just, you saw it slowly but surely, start to fade away and all this. And I mean, at one time, Morgan McClure around here in the media and the talk shows, I remember going up there and just, ooh, neato, interviewing Ward Burton and all this sort of stuff. Non-existent now. Non-existent. And, it's Martin McClure and all this, trying to have a factor in the K&N series. That is quite the demise. That is probably our equivalent of, let's just say, the Boston Braves moving to Milwaukee or what have you because of...
Well, how about Roush Fenway Racing?
Exactly. There's another one, yeah. I wanted to keep it local, but yes, yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, my point is that, they had 5 cars at one point. They were one of the strongest teams out there, and then NASCAR, decided to restrict owners to only a maximum of 4 teams, and now Roush Fenway's down to 2 teams. So yeah, you can see how the sport has evolved, in terms of like Morgan McClure, and then the Roush Fenway. I mean, they're different situations, but still, in a sense, they're kind of linked because they're not as they're not racing either with Morgan McClure or in terms of Roush Fenway, they only have the 2 cars as opposed to, at one point having 5 cars, and that, there was so much concern back in the, between, let's say, 2002 to 2006 or 7, that all the big teams were going to run away with everything, so they reduced the, they put caps on the number of cars a team owner can have, and we still see to this day that the teams that have the most cars typically are the ones that are winning. We see that with Joe Gibbs Racing or Team Penske or a team well, they haven't been that strong this year, but Team Hendrick Motorsports. I mean, it's a very unusual situation that we've seen kind of evolve, but it is what we have today, and we just go with it.
Now, is one of the reasons why we had these July races on a Saturday night? I was trying to figure out, back-to-back Saturday night races. Is it because of July heat? Is that the situation? The idea is, I guess, Pocono won't be quite as hot being in Pennsylvania that, say, Kentucky or Daytona, or is there something I'm not getting there?
Well, I mean, the Daytona race, obviously, there's the tradition because of the
Sure.
July weekend.
Sure.
I mean, with Pocono, I would love to see them put lights in that place, but the cost would be just so prohibitive. I mean, it would be many, many multi-millions of dollars to put lights in there, but,
okay.
I think that hopefully where weather typically is a wild card at Pocono, it won't be going forward starting next year with the back-to-back, weekends. So we'll just have to see, what plays out. And remember one other thing, too, excuse me, that we're not saying the schedule as it is in 2020 is going to be the same exact schedule in 2021 because I think it'll be a much even greater difference, different schedule in 2021 going forward. So a lot of the movement we've seen for 2020 could be moving even more in 2021. We may see less races. Who knows? I mean, there's just so much, it's kind of on the table right now that NASCAR is going through. And to their credit, they're being very methodical. They're being very concerned about how this will impact not only the race series, but also, more importantly, the race fans. How are the fans going to react to this? I mean, if we reduce the schedule from 36 to, let's say, 32 races, how are the fans going to react? Are they going to lose? Are they going to lose interest? Or are the fans that that have lost interest before, will they come back? If they see a stronger yet smaller schedule. There's a lot of variables that NASCAR is going through right now, and I give them a lot of credit because they're being very deliberate. They're being very methodical. They're being very patient in how to make these changes to hopefully improve the overall health of the series and the overall popularity of the series too.
No. You know what I said the last time we talked and all that about the scheduling? I said 2026, 4th of July, Dover. Have it with the Philly race. That was my thing right there that I thought would be really big. Of course, it would also compete with the All-Star game. They've already awarded the Phillies the 2026 Baseball All-Star game. There you go with that. He's Jerry Bonkowski. He's the right rev of Speed. And yes, it'll be something of an end of an era for Pocono this weekend, but they're not going away. It's just a little different. Okay, Tri-City Sports now coming back and tell you why the Vols may stink next year. You heard me, Tri-City Sports now. That'll be popular.